Have you ever felt like you're alive, but disconnected from the living? Like you're standing inside your own life, yet something invisible, something silent, keeps you one step removed from everything that matters? Imagine this. You're at a dinner with friends. They're laughing, loud, animated, alive. You smile, you nod, you respond. When they speak, you do everything a person is supposed to do. But inside, it's flat, muted, like you're watching life through a thick pane of frosted glass, close enough to see it, but too far to touch. You don't feel bored. You don't feel sad. You don't feel anything enough to call it a feeling. You exist in a grayscale world while everyone else is living in color. It's a strange kind of suffering, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet like snowfall. A stillness that looks like peace from the outside, but on the inside, it feels like absence. The absence of warmth, of joy, of spark, the absence of yourself. Some people would call you cold, distant, unfeeling. But what if the truth is more complicated than that? What if you're not broken, just disconnected? What if your heart is still there, beating, waiting behind the glass? In this video, we're not just going to talk about emotional detachment. We're going to step into it, understand it, feel it maybe for the first time in a long time. Because numbness isn't emptiness. It's evidence that once something hurt too much to hold. Let's begin. Let's be honest, most emotionally detached people don't realize they're detached. You don't wake up thinking, I feel nothing today. You simply move. You function. You perform life the way a computer runs a script. The signs aren't explosive. They're subtle, quiet, the kind of symptoms only you can feel. Maybe you've noticed that happiness feels like a memory instead of an experience. You achieve a goal. You once prayed for a new job, a raise, a relationship, and people say, you must be so excited. You smile, nod, agree. Inside, it feels neutral, like checking a box. Maybe someone you love cries and you want to comfort them. You know you should, but it's like there's a delay between your intention and your emotion. You put a hand on their shoulder. You say the right words, but the warmth isn't there. The feeling doesn't arrive. Or maybe you've grown used to saying, I'm fine. It's whatever. I don't know what I feel. Not because you're lying, but because you genuinely don't have an answer. You don't feel deeply sad. You don't feel deeply happy. You float somewhere in the middle, a low, constant emotional flatline. And the world confuses your numbness for calmness, your silence for strength, your distance for independence. But deep down, you might sense something missing, not broken, but offline. A part of you that once felt everything, now echoes like an empty room. If this part feels familiar, share one sentence below, even a simple, I relate. It might be the first moment you let that quiet truth be seen. There's a word for this silence inside you, alexithymia. It means emotional blindness, not because you don't have feelings, but because the bridge between emotion and awareness has gone dim, like a city at night after a power outage. When someone asks, what are you feeling right now? Your mind doesn't search, it blanks. You want to answer, you want to explain, but there's no language, no label, no emotional signal to read, just static. You may notice sensations instead of emotions. A tight chest, a dry throat, a heavy stomach. You know something is happening inside your body, you just can't decode it. The heart whispers, but the mind never receives the message. Most people think emotional detachment means coldness, numbness, apathy. But the truth is softer and far more painful. It's like trying to speak a language you were never taught. You want to feel connected. You want to respond with warmth. You simply can't access the emotional file system. Alexithymia is not the absence of feeling, it's the separation from it. A locked room with you on one side and your emotions quietly waiting on the other. Here's the thing most people never realize. When emotions are suppressed, they don't disappear, they change form. If the mind refuses to feel, the body is forced to speak. Maybe you don't feel sadness, but you're always tired, exhausted in a way 8 hours of sleep never fixes. Maybe you don't feel anxious, yet your jaw is tight every morning, your stomach uneasy every night, your shoulders sit like stone, your breathing shallow, your chest heavy as if your ribs are bracing for a storm you can't remember. The body remembers what the mind avoids. Digestive issues, chronic tension, headaches that arrive without warning, skin picking, nail biting, restless legs. All quiet expressions of emotions with no exit. And when someone asks, "Are you stressed?" you pause because you genuinely don't know. The brain turned off the emotional alarm system years ago, but the body never got the memo. This isn't weakness, it's adaptation. When emotional pain is too overwhelming, the nervous system reroutes the signal. It diverts grief into the gut, fear into the spine, anger into clenched teeth. The heart goes silent, and the body becomes the storyteller. If you've been feeling physically heavy, disconnected, tense without a reason, the reason might not be physical at all. It might be emotional but trapped, frozen, stored in muscle and bone. Because even when the mind goes quiet, the body keeps knocking, hoping one day you'll be safe enough to open the door. Emotional detachment rarely begins in adulthood. It begins in small rooms, quiet houses, childhood nights where feelings had nowhere to land. Maybe your parents provided everything: food, clothes, education. You were never hit. You were never starved. From the outside, you had a good childhood. But emotional neglect isn't loud like trauma. It's invisible, a lack rather than a wound. Picture a child crying in their bedroom. Not because of anything dramatic, just overwhelmed, scared, needing warmth. They wait for someone to come. Nobody does. Or worse, someone comes, but instead of comfort, they say, "You're overreacting. Stop crying. There's nothing to be sad about. Don't be so sensitive." And in that moment, the child learns a dangerous lesson. Feelings aren't welcome here. Love is conditional. Vulnerability is a liability. If you express emotion, you risk rejection or shame. So the child adapts. They stop expecting comfort. They stop showing need. They grow up too fast, too quiet, too contained. And the brain, trying to protect that small, fragile heart, builds a shield, a numbness, a glass wall. This is how emotional detachment starts. Not in chaos, but in silence. Not with abuse, but with absence. Not from being hurt too much, but from being held too little. And you carry that child into adulthood, into relationships, into conversations, into moments where emotions should exist naturally, but instead feel foreign, distant, unreachable. If no one ever mirrored your feelings back to you, how could you learn to recognize them? If no one ever soothed your fear, how could your nervous system feel safe now? Emotional detachment is not who you are, it's who you had to become to survive a home where emotions went unanswered. When emotional pain becomes too heavy for a child to carry, the brain does something remarkable. It protects. It steps in like an emergency response team and shuts down the emotional grid to prevent overload. Not because you are weak, but because your nervous system made a life-saving calculation. Feeling everything was more dangerous than feeling nothing. Think of your brain like a circuit breaker. When the voltage of fear, shame, or loneliness becomes too high, the switch flips not out of failure, but survival. The emotional wires go dark, the system goes quiet. This is the freeze response, the lesser-known sibling of fight or flight. When you can't fight what hurts you, when you can't run from it, the brain chooses the third option. It numbs you so you don't feel the impact. In this state, the amygdala, the alarm bell of emotions, sends signals of distress. But the prefrontal cortex steps in like a CEO managing a crisis. It blunts the message, dampens the sensation, floods the body with natural painkillers that function like anesthetic for the soul. Over time, the circuit stays off, not temporarily, not accidentally, but habitually, because the brain learned one essential rule. Feeling is unsafe. You didn't wake up one day and decide to disconnect. Your nervous system made that decision long before you had words for pain or a voice to ask for comfort. This wasn't your weakness. It was your mind protecting you, the only way it knew how. Numbness feels safe, almost comforting. You don't crumble when someone leaves. You don't break when plans fall apart. Life hurts less when you stop expecting it to feel good. But safety has a cost, because when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. When you mute fear, you mute excitement. When you lock away sadness, you also lock away love. You don't get to turn off one emotion, you turn off the entire spectrum. From the outside, people may even admire you. You seem self-contained, unshakable, unaffected. They say, "You're so strong." Not knowing your strength is just silence a shield, not peace. In relationships, this can look like independence. You don't need reassurance. You don't crave closeness. But deep inside, there's a quiet truth you rarely admit. You want connection, you just don't know how to hold it without losing yourself. Dismissive avoidant attachment often grows from this paradox. When someone gets close, your system red flags it as danger. You pull back, you go cold. You say you need space not because you don't care, but because caring feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability once cost too much. The irony is brutal. The wall that protected you is now the wall that isolates you. It kept heartbreak out, but it also kept you locked in. Numbness was never the enemy. It was the armor. But armor gets heavy when you're trying to live, not just survive. If we could step inside the mind of someone emotionally detached, the thoughts wouldn't be loud. They'd be soft, fragmented, unfinished. It might sound like this: I wish I could feel what everyone else feels. Why don't I react the way they do? Am I broken or just tired? There's longing, but it's muted. Desire, but distant, like an echo underwater. You watch other people laugh, cry, connect like it's instinct, and you wonder why your own emotions feel like strangers who never learned your name. Sometimes the thoughts turn inward. Maybe I don't need anyone. Maybe it's easier this way. If I let them close, what if I can't give them what they want? And beneath it, almost imperceptible, something softer. I want to feel alive again. This is the silent monologue no one hears. Not coldness, but confusion. Not absence, but distance. A heart trying to speak through layers of survival mechanisms. The emotionally detached mind isn't empty, it's guarded. It holds feeling like a language forgotten, waiting for the day it will be spoken again. If numbness was a survival strategy, then reconnection must be a gentle return, not a forced awakening. You can't rip the door off its hinges and expect your nervous system to welcome you. You knock softly, you open slowly, you let yourself feel in safe, measured doses. Step 1. Start with sensation, not emotion. When you don't know what you feel, ask instead, where do I feel it? Place a hand over your chest, your throat, your stomach. Notice tightness, heaviness, buzzing. Don't analyze, just witness. The body is the doorway when the mind is locked. Step 2. One-word naming. Emotions are overwhelming when they're vague. So simplify. Pick a single word, even if it's uncertain. Uneasy, numb, neutral, restless. Naming is a bridge small but real. Step 3. Micro-joy practice. Don't chase big happiness. Hunt for 1% warmth. The taste of coffee. Warm water on skin. A song that makes your chest flutter, even slightly. Your nervous system learns safety through tiny sparks, not fireworks. Step 4. Proxy tears. Sometimes it's too dangerous to cry for yourself. So cry for a movie character, a song, a memory that isn't sharp enough to cut you. These are borrowed tears, training wheels for emotional release. Step 5. Titration, the art of feeling in drops. Feelings returning all at once can feel like drowning, so you build tolerance slowly. Set a timer, 60 seconds to sit with discomfort. Not to fix it, not to solve it, just to survive being present with it. Tomorrow, try 90 seconds. Next week, 2 minutes. Healing doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like subtle color returning to a grayscale life. It looks like finally feeling a lump in your throat when someone hugs you. It looks like noticing joy instead of only remembering it. You're not learning feelings from scratch. You're remembering them, rebuilding the pathway, letting the frozen parts thaw drop by drop until emotion becomes safe enough to stay. Reconnection is not about forcing the heart open. It's about showing it slowly, patiently. You're safe now. You're allowed to feel again. Healing from emotional detachment doesn't come all at once. It doesn't explode open like fireworks. It arrives quietly, like the first crack in frozen ice. Subtle, fragile, but real. Maybe today, while listening, something inside you shifted. Not a full thaw, just a tiny warmth, a flicker. The awareness that numbness wasn't your failure, it was your armor. And armor, once useful, can eventually become too heavy to carry. You don't have to tear the wall down in one day. You only need a crack, just enough light to enter, just enough feeling to remind you there is still color beneath the frost. Because the opposite of numbness isn't joy, it's aliveness. The quiet pulse beneath your ribs, the sting of returning sensation, proof that you are still here, still capable, still human. If any part of this message reached you even softly, I want you to acknowledge that moment, that tiny shift, that crack in the glass. And if you feel safe to share, tell me in the comments what part of this resonated. Your words might be the mirror someone else has been waiting for, proof that they are not alone in the quiet. If you want more videos like this, if you want to keep walking this path back toward yourself, hit subscribe and stay with me. We heal slowly here, warmly, together,